Welcome to the Guntersville Grassroots Podcast. Today is Monday, May the 2nd. I'm your host, Pat Kennemer. I'm here with my very tan host, Trey Swindle, who's been somewhere in Mississippi playing in a mud hole.
That's right.
I think he might be glad to be back up in North Alabama for a minute, sleep in his own bed, whatever. Today, we're going to have the winner of the Castin N Catchin tournament, or one of the winners, the team, Taylor Ashley, on as a guest. We'll have him on here in a little while. We're going to talk a little bit about the post spawn that Trey's over here smiling about. He's glad it's coming. I'm with him. I'm sick of dingers and weightless worms, and of course that never really ends from here on out. But particularly with the eelgrass, they seem to hang around it and like them. But
that's right.
Castin N Catchin tournament last weekend before this, had 219 boats. You missed a good one, Trey. Now, clearly you were, chasing a bigger fish. But, 219 boats, 113 of the boats weighed. I can't remember exactly. They paid so many cash prizes, and then they had a bunch of rods they gave away. It took 12, 13 pounds to get the bottom of that. They don't have it on this sheet. But Scott Ashley and Taylor Ashley won with 25 pounds, 6 ounces, which is a big bag for April.
Yeah, it is.
And they were second. Or no, they were top 5 in the Freedom before. I'd have to go back and look. And then Ryan Salzman and his partner were second in this one and second in the Freedom Marine Tournament the weekend before. Ryan, they had like an 8-pounder. Which is, if I'd had 8-pounder, I'd have had close to 23 pounds myself. Fourth place, 23-12, Hadley Cone and Jordan Lee, 22 pounds and an ounce. So we ended up with 8 20-pound bags, something like that. And that day, it got windy. So you were at Weiss that day, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I think I was.
Was it windy at Weiss?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's southeast, and it was manageable, but it made it hard to drag stuff because, we're in dragging season right now.
Yep.
Nothing wants to chase anything. Sadly. Yeah. I think I got 3 bites on like a chatterbait or a spinnerbait that day and did not catch one of them. They just headbutted, and the Guntersville fish get in that post spawn funk, and they just won't do it.
Yeah, they don't like it right after they get done doing their thing. They bury up. They don't want to chase nothing.
You got to lay that dinger right in front of them for
That's
a minute,
right.
so which is not fun.
No, I just soon stay at home, watch TV, instead of drag something around like that all day.
You're gonna have to learn to do it if you're gonna be big time now. I'm with you. I struggle. I forced myself to slow down a little bit, and we caught 20 maybe that day, maybe a little more, but maybe 9, 10 keepers and a bunch of little ones. We only had 16 pounds, ended up 32nd, I think. I had my normal fishing partner couldn't make it. He had a work issue come up, and I called an old buddy of mine that I grew up fishing and duck hunting with. I've been fishing with him. We were talking about it. The first time I ever went fishing with him, I was 16 or 17 years old, and we were in a dove field, and the dove hunt was terrible. And he goes, "You want to go fishing?" And I knew the guy, but I didn't know him well. Mm-hmm. And that was 30 years ago. So we've fished together. He's 77. So I was actually pretty tickled to spend the day with my old buddy Bob House and, fishing with me. Yep. He taught me how to fish a dinger and had at least 3 of the 5 that we weighed, maybe 4 of them. I caught more than he did, but I know he had the bigger ones on a 6-inch, 6-inch do nothing, sitting in the old man chair in the back, just kicked my butt.
That's right. That's how it always goes.
That's why I brought him.
Yeah, that's right.
If he hadn't broke off that one 5-6 pounder, it would have made a pretty good difference. But
you'd have went from 16 to about 19?
At least. We had one 2.5 pound.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It would have been a good call. Yeah, 16, 19, something like that. Enough to make a difference, but that's okay. I enjoyed the day. It was fun. He and I had not been out like that in quite some time. He's 77, man. I hope when I'm 77, number one, he still fishes 3 or 4 days a week, 2 or 3 hours at a time. He lives in Scottsboro. So I hope when I'm 77, number one, I still want to go. And number 2, that I can go.
That's right.
And maybe number 3, one of my old buddies will carry me. So, Trey, right. I'm old. Remember, when I get old, carry me fishing.
That's right.
You just got back in town, right?
Yep, just got back in town, just enough to realize I was home.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you even recognize your bed when you got there?
I didn't. It was weird. I was like, where am I at? I didn't even feel like I was home. I've been away for so long.
Are you home for a while?
I'm home. I got ABT at Wheeler in 2 weeks, and then I don't have it open till July. So
Is that a southern or is that a
northern? On Oneida.
It won't be so hot, will
Yep.
it? You ever been up there?
Mm-mm. Well, I've been to Ontario one time, St. Lawrence River.
Fishing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be brown fish, right?
Should be. I think largemouth will play too, but to win, you'll probably have to have a mixed bag, I would assume. I don't know if you can win doing either one of them. You'll probably have to do both.
That's Oneida?
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Syracuse?
Is it? That's quite the haul. Maybe gas won't be $5.
It's about 16 hours, I think.
Oh. Well, you got a break. You get to stay home for
right.
a minute and hang out with that girlfriend that's 2 hours away, but not too far.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
that same weekend, that Salt Invitational tournament, again, we talked about this. It was a good event. The timing on it was bad. They came out with it 2 weeks before. I don't remember how many. I never did get to count on how many boats they had. But Jonathan Fang and Drew Carroll caught 16.01 and won $5,000 for it because that was guaranteed money. They had 5 or 6 guaranteed places regardless of the boats. So, that was a pretty good day.
Yeah, that was.
It don't matter how many boats are in it.
Yeah, I don't care if it's 5 boats. That's pretty daggum good.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a $250 entry, and the guy that put that on, I'm gonna make sure that I put him and the Castin N Catchin group in touch with each other. And he wasn't familiar with my website either, and because he said he was going to plan something again next year and try to do. He had a pretty good lineup of people. I mean, he had Dustin Connell and some other folks there. And I'm gonna try to connect those people so nobody's scheduled on top of each other because they're both 501(c). They're true charitable organizations, and they didn't want to take away from each other.
Yep.
So I had a BFL this weekend.
Weights were kind of low in that.
They were. I was out of town. I had a 20-year wedding anniversary last week, and me and the wife went down to Biloxi for Wednesday through Sunday. I do not gamble. We spent $1 in a slot machine just to say that we do. I'm not opposed to it. I just work too hard for my money to give it to somebody watching a computer screen flash in front of me. So we went down there and we're pretty much lazy, sat by the pool. Not a whole lot of that. We just, I don't know, we ate a lot.
Stress-free?
No kids.
That's right.
That's right. My mother, God bless her, kept the kids all weekend. So it was nice. I really didn't want to come back. This work thing gets in the way.
That's right.
You're right. The weights were low. I heard it was pretty windy Saturday. It was pretty windy where I was at, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
No float mealgrass in Biloxi. So, but you're right. 19.8, Jacob Gardner. I read a little article on the MLF website. I still call it FLW, but he was flipping like a 3/16 ounce weight in grass or something. I mean, it must have been some of that gator grass stuff or something. He must have found some spawners and said he caught 13 or 14 pounds and then went somewhere and managed to catch 2 5-pounders back to back and thought he had 18, 19, and he had about 19 pounds. He said he did not expect to win.
Yeah.
I mean, who would? A BFL?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to win with 19 in a BFL when they're catching them as good as they've been catching them.
Right.
At least.
Right. They only had about 100 boats. Do you think, I'm betting with the Pro Tour being here next week, I think, it's off limits for those guys. So, of course, a lot of those guys are the Alex Davises and Jacob Wall and some of the other locals that couldn't fish it.
Yep.
So,
that's why I was kind of mad I missed that one. I would have liked to have fished it, but I was not fixing to drive home Friday night from Mississippi and get up and fish Guntersville Saturday morning.
No, that'd be even hard for a young man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'd been fishing for
about 3 weeks straight.
I was about to say, I mean, you went from here to Weiss.
Yeah, I went from Cherokee home for about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, you came here and saw me one of those days.
Yep, and then I went straight to Virginia, and then I went straight from Virginia home for 2 days and went to Weiss, and then I left straight from the weigh-in at Weiss and went to Ross Barnett, and then I was home for a day, and then now I'm
you left the weigh-in at Weiss and drove to Mississippi.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have my boat there, so I had to drive back home.
But stop
and get the boat, and then drove straight to Mississippi. I got there at like 11 that night and got up Sunday morning and started it all over again.
Whew. Now, Daniel's not fishing the Centrals, is he?
He's fishing the Southern.
Just Southern. Mm-hmm. And did you know many of the folks over there?
Not really.
Not really? Different crew?
Yes, it's a different crew. I know a couple of them, not real well, but I know a couple.
Yeah, Lonnie Cochran and you were the only two that I I would have never even paid attention to the Central Opens, except I had two friends fishing it, so I kind of watched it a little bit. And, and both of y'all kind of didn't have the greatest week. But and from talking to both of you, you were both kind of around them. Things didn't work.
Yep. Mine, I don't know. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it don't. The first day, I made a big gamble. I had like 2 fish in the box at like about 250, and I weighed in at 340, and I run down, and then there it's real sketchy with rebar and stumps in the water. So I just, instead of idling for 30 minutes, I just sent her on through there. Luckily, didn't hit nothing, but I got back here and I made 2 casts with a buzz bait, and I had one miss it, and I caught a 5-pounder, and I boat flipped it and made another cast and missed another big one. Or I didn't miss it; it just kind of missed my buzz bait, and then I caught a 2-pounder. And then I had to go because I had to idle back out because I couldn't get on plane back there. So I left, and then...
So it's shallow.
Yeah, it's real shallow, and it's just a bunch of timber and stumps and stuff, and whoever the genius was that decided this was a good idea, I don't know, but they take rebar and drive it down in the stumps. Well, when the water's high like it is right now, you can't see the rebar. It's like 2 inches under the water.
Safety first.
It'll find you, but you can't find it till it's too late. So
I don't know if you've listened to it yet, and I hadn't finished it. I was listening to Luke Duncan's podcast today, driving. As I listened to part of it, and let's just say his description of Ross Barnett had a lot of beeps in it.
I can agree with that after I just spent like 7 days there.
Yeah. He said it was kind of a crap hole and a mud hole.
When you hit a stump and your co-angler looks at you like he's scared to death and it doesn't even faze you, you just act like it don't happen. That's how you know it's just junk. Because I hit so many it didn't even bother me anymore. And a lot of them you'd hit it and it'd just stick. And you just have to just gun it and get off of it.
You hadn't crawled under your boat and looked?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
No.
All right.
That's Ain't nothing a black Sharpie won't fix. The good thing is most of them stumps, they're so waterlogged. They've been in the water for so long, it's not really going to...
It's the rebar.
Yeah, it's the rebar you got to watch out for. The stumps that are under the water, unless you hit them running, they're fine because they're so soft. You just kind of slide over them. But the rebar, you don't slide over too well.
No, I'd say not. What happened at Weiss?
Weiss.
You were feeling good about it, and y'all had a decent practice, right?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was going to be a whole lot better than it was. It turned out like we've had a weird year. The grass is not growing like it usually, because it stayed cold for so long. It tried to get hot, then it got cold, so the grass was all dead. There wasn't no grass really growing. It was all stems. So we tried to go swim a jig, and the water was low. I mean, we caught some big ones in practice. We just wasn't getting many bites. We caught a 580 and a 4 something. But then they were just kind of, I don't know, it got real slow. And we finally realized on the tournament day that they all locked down on bed. So we spent a lot of time sight fishing, and that is not my go-to.
Well, you and I talked about that. I think in the last episode we talked about sight fishing, and I'm curious if Taylor Ashley's going to tell us if how he won. I hope he does. I saw something on the ABT website was talking about it. Maybe it was a picture of a live, or maybe it was Facebook or something, but it showed you and Daniel sight fishing. And when I saw that, I went, that's not what he was planning on doing.
It's not good for the home team when you see me sight fishing. But I will say I did catch one looking at him.
You did? One?
I did catch one.
Yeah.
I didn't really spend much time on the other one because I said, dude, let's go swim a jig. And we run back to the pocket I like. And I swam a jig for like 10 casts and caught like a 5-pounder. Or it was like 4.5 or something. 4.25. 4. Anyways, 4-pounder. Boat flipped him, and I'm like, it's fixing to go down. And I missed one on the swim jig, but we just kind of made a risk and went and swam a jig just because those sight fish are just, I don't know. They're just not my.
They get beat up too. I mean,
yeah, and I mean when they're laying up there where everybody can see them, it's kind of.
I'm on a bet that, like, I know, like I told you, Hadley Cohen and Jordan Lee. Mm-hmm. Jordan was fishing with Hadley, and Hadley's a pretty good sight fisherman on Guntersville. He's got some areas that for a week or two, mm-hmm. that he normally does pretty well with it. And I know in the Freedom Tournament they had a decent bag, and mm-hmm. And I know they were sight fishing. I didn't ever see him really to ask after on that, but they did use the words flick, shake, and something else. So, they were probably, picking over there. So, I'm glad that's about over.
Me and you both.
What's coming? You know what's coming now?
It's ledge season, boys.
Yes, sir.
It's ledge season. They gonna be out deep post spawn. Well, you got to catch them in between before they get out. That's
10 to 12, man. 10
Yep.
to 12. That's when they first start chewing here in the next week or two.
I guarantee you, I heard today that the water temp was in the mid to upper 70s once the sun gets up. Is what
Wow. Because I was told this weekend with it windy Saturday, 68 to 70. But this week, 70-something degrees, 80-something. It's 86 out there. I mean, it's hot. You know?
It is. I heard Scott, a buddy of mine that works at Waterfront, he told me that it was like 76 just a minute ago when I called him.
Oh, so, they're fixing to jump now.
So if it stays that way all week and into next week, there'll be
some groups of them.
Yeah,
out,
there'll be some
sure.
groups of fish.
But at the same time, the shad spawn was just really starting up last time I mean, it was just thinking, and then it get cold again. And so you got shad spawn, you got the bluegill spawn. You're really going to be able to catch them any way you want to catch them.
Yep. Starting next week, I think you can catch them on. Like we said, the weather's been so jacked up, it can't decide what it wants to do. So we're really just getting the best shad spawn deal, too, I feel like, which I haven't been here. I've been all across the freaking country. But at the same time, it's that way everywhere. Like, you can kind of call your own shots. You got a shad spawn, you got fish moving out, you got fish on brim beds, you got fry garters still, you got everything.
As Tim Chandler said a few weeks ago, in May, if you can't catch a fish, you need a new hobby.
That's right. That's right.
You can do a million different things. But I'm with you. Other than fighting the crowds, Monday through Friday, I would for sure prefer to be on that first out stop, hard bottom edge. So a lot of it's
shell beds.
Shell beds, yeah. A lot of it's got grass up close to it now, and it's right off the edge of it, which makes it a little harder to see them sometimes.
Yep.
But that's all in all not a bad thing either, because it makes it a little easier. I mean, it makes some stuff get overlooked.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
I think that the MLF pros next week, assuming there's any current, are going to hit it just right.
Yep.
With this weather, they're probably going to ruin. They're probably going to expose and ruin a lot of the good stuff for a while. So maybe you ought to slide out a little bit between now and then.
Yeah. When do they start?
I'm gonna say practice. How many days practice they get?
I don't even remember.
It's next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or something like that. Next week. Like I'm
gonna have to get mine done like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then
yeah.
Get my dose.
So this coming weekend, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but this coming weekend is that ABA Top 150 solo. I heard, and I haven't seen it officially, but I was told like before I went on vacation, they only had like 20 places left. So
really?
I think they cut off registration last Wednesday. Now, I'm betting if they've got openings, they'll still take your money.
Yeah.
But they may hit it just right, but there's enough transitional stuff going on right now with these fish. And again, I haven't been on the water since Castin N Catchin, so I'm going off a little bit of history and assumptions. But they'll be probably these post-spawn bags may not weigh quite as much, but I could see somebody finding the right school of fish, and particularly the pros week after next, and I could see it taking 20 pounds a day or better to win it.
Yeah.
Particularly if they move out. And there's 2 or 3 places on the lake I can guarantee you there's some sitting out right now. Yep. It's just who gets there first, and I don't like that when it comes to the race to a hole kind of deal.
That's right.
But talking to Jana today, she told me that speed worms, swim baits, mag drafts, and frogs were one of the best baits. And the frog thing I really didn't see coming. But some of that shallow spawning stuff, there had been an algae bloom over the last couple of weeks, and it got too slimy to throw anything in it.
Yeah.
So, but I guess the fish are still in it and spawning. Talking to Lonnie Cochran last night for a minute, he said he felt like there was still another good wave of spawners coming. He felt like we were running a couple of weeks behind where we were this time last year. This time last year they were out.
Yeah.
They overnight. And that 70-degree water is normally the kicker. But about that time you've got a big wave of them that's done, and then they start pushing out. That's my experience anyway. It's all about the bait though.
Yeah.
And crawfish.
That's right.
So, we've got, as we said, Taylor Ashley. We're going to see if we can get him on the phone, see if he can tell us a little bit about how to catch 25 pounds in April, because he just did it. We've got Taylor Ashley on here with us. Taylor, and I believe it was his dad, right, Scott,
Yes, sir.
won the Castin N Catchin tournament weekend before last, which was a $15,000 lick. That was a pretty good day. So rather than me and Trey blabbing about fishing when neither one of us have been on Guntersville in a week, let's hear a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your day that day. Kind of, what information you're willing to share, how you caught them, that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, I'm probably going to tell pretty much the truth to y'all guys. Cause
Sure.
I think fishing has changed a lot since then.
Oh, sure.
I know it has, but they were already kind of moving to the next phase of the spawn. I caught these fish. My big fish were spawning fish. But kind of now they're.
Were you looking at them?
Do what?
Were you sight fishing them, or were you?
Yeah, so we caught all of our big ones were sight fishing. We got there that morning and we started close to some big ones. Or really my biggest one. I really knew I needed her, and it was 712. It one big third big fish, I think.
Right.
But yeah, she was on bed, and I started close because I was gonna wait for just a little bit of light to come on her. And she was kind of like in a sneaky little spot, I guess. And I knew many people wouldn't find her, so I really wasn't worried about that. And I started close, and we started just throwing a little topwater around in the morning. And we caught a few nice ones right off the bat on topwater, just casting around. And probably, I'd say 3 to 5 foot of water, and scattered hydrilla or milfoil, whatever you want to call it. Milfoil, probably.
Probably, yeah.
And anyways, caught a couple nice ones. Actually lost one that would have gave me a better weight. I lost one probably like 4-pounder. Just treble hooks, I guess.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Anyway, so we went on around. I don't know. We did that for maybe 30 or 45 minutes, and a little bit of sun was peeking over the hill there, and I went over there to check on old big girl, and she wasn't acting right. Like all the big uns never do. Most big uns on bed never act right. But,
that's how they got big. It's like a big deer,
Yeah, like that's one thing I will say is I did win this sight fishing, but I worked for these big fish.
Right.
But anyways, I went over there and I looked at her. I fished for a minute and didn't get nothing. I went up there and looked at her, and of course the male was just sitting there, pretty as he could be, and she was 10 foot off the bed, just sitting there looking at me. So I left. Every time I went over there, I kind of really figured out where she was sitting exactly. Kind of just telling where she liked to hang out a lot. So I left that one, and we had some more like little bed fish there that I think we might have got a limit off like 2-pounders. Like we already had a couple on the top water that morning, and then maybe we caught like 2 or 3 bed fish, just little ones, just little males. And so then I come back. It was all kind of in the same area where that big one was. And I come back, and as I'm coming back, I took a different trail line than I usually went, from my other graph.
Right.
Bingoing in there. And I come across one that she was deep. She was like 4 or 5 foot deep. And I could tell, I was like, that's at least a 4-pounder. I was like, that'll definitely help our bag. So I fished for it for a minute. It wasn't acting right. So I went back over to the big one, fished for it without seeing it for forever, probably 20 or 30 minutes. Finally gave up on her. Went back over there, looked at her. She was sitting off the bed, not acting right. And so I come back to the other one I just found and started fishing for it. And then I actually think I might have caught the male when I pulled up to it. I caught the male on the drop shot, just casting out there to her. I caught the male, and the male was a good one. It called for me at the time. And Daddy's looking at me. He's like, should we take it or not? And I was like, it was hard not to take it in the moment. I was like, just put it in the box for now. Remember which one it was. And
there's something about taking the male off the bed, right?
Yep. And so we fished for her for a little while, couldn't catch her. And I went back over to my big one, and I think I actually fished for her again. I threw in there and I caught the male off that one. That's what I did. I threw in there and I caught the male off the big one's bed, and he wouldn't have helped much, so I just threw him straight back. I said, all right, let's give her a minute. And I turned back around and fished for the other one that I caught the male off of earlier. And it wasn't, I stayed like way back. And I'm telling you, I couldn't see this fish. And I threw in there and I was just, dude, I throw a white swim jig on bedfish when I'm trying to see them anyways.
Right.
So I threw a white swim jig in there and I seen her. I couldn't see her, and then, I was sitting there working. I seen her flare up on it. I seen her kind of turn on her side. I seen her white belly. I was like, oh, she just hit it. And about, I don't know, 10 flips later, she ate it. And she come up, and she was like 5.5. I thought it was a 4-pounder, but she was a 5.5.
Yeah, it was good guess there.
Yeah. So those deep fish are hard to judge.
Oh, sure. Hey, that was a good fish. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big one. But anyways, caught that one. I was like, all right, let's catch this big one and we'll be good. And I turned around and I fished for that big one for probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes. I might have even caught the male again. I think I caught that male twice. Let him go. Then I finally, I don't know if I want to tell this secret. I finally threw the right bait in there.
There you go. There you go.
I finally threw the right bait in there, and by gosh, she ate it first cast. And yeah, I got her in. It was a hell of a fight, and my adrenaline was rushing. She was barely hooked, and yeah, it was a big one.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that all happened within like 30 minutes of each other. I got a 5.5 pounder, and I got an 8-pounder, and I actually did. Between catching them, sometime I ran over to another bed fish, and I caught like a 3.5 pounder off one bed. I think ended up being in my bag. It was a first cast deal. I pulled up on this fish. I actually couldn't see it. I could see the bed. And I threw to the bed. She bit it first cast, put her in the boat, and I went back to those big ones. That was somewhere in between my story there.
Right.
Anyways, I had that one, and it was like 12 o'clock at that point. And I'm guessing we probably had like over 20 at that point. But then I went and looked at two. I had two more good ones on bed. One was a big one. And she was just, some guys had been fishing that bank all day long, like going back and forth. Some old guys fishing some club tournament, fished the hell out of it. And they finally left, and I pulled over there, and she was not acting right. I couldn't sit there and fish for her long. Wind was blowing in. I couldn't see her. Eelgrass was blowing in. Couldn't freaking put my bait on her where I wanted to. And so I actually only spent like 10 minutes on that one probably. And I just decided she wasn't ready. And we picked up. We made a long run to a place that I know has bedfish. I take this back. Me and Daddy put in practice the last couple hours of practice down the river at this one area that we know bedfish are in, and we found this giant on bed. It was probably bigger than the one I caught, honestly. And we went down there. We run like 30 minutes down the river just to go in there, and I fished for this fish for probably 2 hours total. I like coming back to her, checking her, fishing for 30 minutes. Looking at her. It was like 2 o'clock and the wind was blowing in on me. I done fished for this fish for 2 hours, and I'm like, I know I'm one bite away. And I picked up again, and I ran like 20 minutes up the river, past the ramp, and I pulled in this one pocket that I know's got some fish, and I pulled in there, and I could see this fish off in the distance, and I thought it was about a 3-pounder. I really thought it was a colder. I mean, I thought it was a 3.5, 4-pounder, and I told Daddy to throw up there, and he threw in there, and she bit it, and he missed her. And I think it might have messed up his worm or something. For some reason, I decided I was going to throw a wacky rig Cinco in there instead of hooking her on something good. So I picked up a wacky rig Cinco and I tossed it in there, and she bit it first cast. And as soon as I set the hook, I said, "Oh my gosh, this is a big." And I couldn't tell she was that big, but when I hooked her, she was coming to the boat, and I got her close. And with that wacky rig hook, you cannot horse them fish. It will come out every time. But I horsed this fish. I got it close to the boat, and I guess I got excited, and I started pulling on it, and it's come flying out of her mouth. And Daddy stabbed the net in the water and caught it.
Oh, wow. Without the hook. The hook was out, and he caught it.
Yep.
It was just your day.
And, yep. It was just my day. So that one was about, it was another 5+, and I guess that's what did it for us.
So how much time practicing did y'all put in for this tournament?
Well, we fished the Freedom Tournament, so
Yeah.
I kind of knew a lot of areas from the Freedom Tournament. But I went Thursday after work, which I actually work in Guntersville, so I went Thursday after work, and on Thursday, and then Friday I took off.
Okay.
So I fished all day Friday. Well, didn't really fish. I just looked.
Yeah. Trey and I were talking about this in the last podcast. I think Guntersville's not really known as a sight fishing lake, but there's a week or two every year that's probably the way to win it, and neither of us do it. I mean, I sight fish for shell crackers, but that's about it. I'm not. I mean, I was running around throwing a dinger all day, and of course, instead of looking at them, I was just blind casting stuff. But So,
well, I will say, like I said earlier, them big ones are not easy to catch.
Right.
9 out of 10, you got to work for them.
Oh, I believe it. And you also think that's probably winding down too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to have a little bit. I think these fish spawn through May a little bit, probably midways through May, but it ain't, I mean, definitely winning the tournament right now, no.
Right. It may help. You may catch one that's going to help you or something, but it's not something to depend on for. Yeah. We were thinking the post-spawn thing's about to really kick into gear, whether you're shad spawning, brim spawning, or cranking. You know, it's.
I do know there's 30 fish offshore, so.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard. I just got back from a little vacation, so I hadn't been fishing since the Castin N Catchin tournament. But so you just moved to Guntersville, I think you said, recently?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From you had fished, I believe you said you fished the Pro Tour one year?
Yeah, I fished the FLW Tour when I was 19. I got my brains beat in, but it was a good learning lesson.
There you go. So you moved up here from around Smith or something like that?
Yeah, so I've lived in Hayden my whole life, but my parents actually moved up here, a little town called Swearington, just outside of Grant.
It's Swearingen. You have to be from North Alabama to really know how to say it, but it's Swearingen. Yeah.
So they bought a piece of land on the bluff up here, and they built them a little like apartment shop place that they're living in now, and they're going to build their house later. So, I mean, I moved to Coleman first because I was working in Coleman. I had a buddy I could live with, so I lived there for about a year, and then I moved to Guntersville pretty much just to be close to my family. I mean, I guess it always helps living near a big bass factory like Guntersville.
Sure. So you're here. You're gonna kind of be a thorn in all the local sides for a while now.
I hate to hear that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about that. Guntersville's always been a tough one on me, but I will say I've definitely learning. I'm learning it a little bit every day I go out. I'm learning that these fish on this lake do not get on the bank, and I mean they do get on the bank. But by gosh, if you want to catch these fish, most of the time you don't need to be within cast distance of the bank.
It's offshore, and not that means 20 feet, but
No,
it
it
could
can
be
be-
100 yards off the bank, but it could be 5 feet. But if you're going to win here, most of the time you got to be off the bank.
I agree. I learned that a long time ago.
It's just not laid out for that here.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and like I guess all this shallow stuff on this lake, there's a first drop that happens. Like you have real shallow, like it's almost like it's silted in over the years. Like it's real shallow, and then like you have that first drop, and I kind of feel like that's where a lot of the shallow fish get when they're shallow. They don't actually get shallow, but they get in that 2 to 5 foot range.
And there's a lot of them live there.
Yeah, I mean they stay there year round. But the thing is, the heck, if they just want to slide off, they can sit in 15 foot and still be on the same grass line.
Mm-hmm. Particularly now with this eelgrass.
So it makes it a puzzling place to fish, but at the same time, I do think it's helped the fishery over the years.
Oh,
But
sure it has. Yeah, for sure.
I still hate the eelgrass.
I don't like it either. Well, I mean, I don't like the floating side of it, and I don't.
Yeah.
I always like grass edges, which are
Yeah.
hard to find now.
Yep.
Trey over here, he kind of likes it, except for the floating part.
Yeah, the floating part I don't like.
Especially
Especially when they ball up on my current breaks out deep. They just like to just float right over my deep school and just make me mad.
Oh, they're 100%. I mean, if you see a wad of eelgrass on the edge of the riverbank somewhere floating, there's probably a current break there.
Yep.
And there's a tip that we probably shouldn't have shared.
Yep.
But if you're riding down the middle of the river and you see something and there's current and there's grass that's not moving, there's probably fish there.
Yep.
And you can't flip 20 foot of water very good. So
Or frog it.
Yeah, or frog it. You can't frog it. I mean, you could. You just probably ain't going to get a bite.
That's right. So, so you guys, had you basically done the same thing in the Freedom Tournament as well? You had been sight fishing then too?
Yeah, I guess the Freedom Tournament was probably more of all sight fishing. I mean, we kind of sight fished all day. There was way more fish on bed in the Freedom Tournament. I guess the full moon had them up that tournament.
Yeah, that day, the Freedom Tournament that day was the full moon in April. And
yeah.
I think I stayed out too far that day. We had 14 or 15 pounds, not much. I struggle to get in less than 5 or 6 foot of water. I just don't like it.
I just suck at looking at them. If I can see them, I more than likely ain't going to catch it.
No, I agree.
I can sit back.
I feel like you can catch a big bag just fishing them shallow bars and stuff. I mean, just the shallow humps and everything. Man, those fish spawn on that shallow stuff that you can't see the bottom.
Oh, particularly, you were talking about spawning through May. As the river warms up, there are fish that spawn out there on those main lake bars that you never see.
I think the giants, they do spawn out there because they don't get messed with. I mean, think about it. If there's a shell bar in 5 feet with grass around it, tucked out of the current, why does he need to go anywhere else? He's got everything he wants right there, and he ain't ever gonna get messed with unless you fan cast a speed worm over the top of him.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't see them. It's just kind of random. And that was what one of the Tim Chandler had said. He felt like this eelgrass stuff had pushed some of them out further. But so you're not fishing any of the major or minor tours right now, just local stuff and working for a living?
Yeah, sadly, I'm working for a living.
Working for a living. So, there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, I have a chance to fish again. I don't know, man. I didn't want to be 30 years old and broke on the tour, and I seen too many guys, and I'm not talking shit about the guys at all. Like, y'all do what y'all want to do. But for me in my life, I feel like, I want to build a business in my future, and I want to build a business that allows me to fish whenever I want to fish. Right. I can fish lakes whenever I want to go fish lakes, and like I enjoy fishing stuff around Alabama. I mean, and even if I drive to, I got buddies out of state too. Like I'll drive to go fish a tournament on Chickamauga. I'll drive to go fish a tournament on Lanier. Like that's no problem. But I don't know.
That's what some people don't realize is when you start trying to fish for a living, it takes the fun out of it because you fishing for your I mean, you fishing for money to live on. So it just takes it, like, it's not fun anymore. It's so stressful and cutthroat, and everybody's there for one reason, and it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah.
And I told Trey, which now I'm 46, and I told Trey, and Trey's 22. So, I told Trey one day, I said, there are a lot of young guys that want to do what you're doing right now, trying to make it. And I said, I'm not one of them.
Well, they all want to do it till they realize what it's all about. And then they don't. Because trust me, I'm only 22, and I've seen a lot of them come up and think they wanted to do it, and then they all fizzle out when they realize, what it's all about. Because it ain't cheap out there.
Oh, no.
I mean, it is not cheap.
No, it's for sure not. So.
I do have a story. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not, I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure when I fished the ABT, you fished the ABT also, didn't you, for years?
Yeah, I fished a lot of them.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I was 16 at the time, and the ABT championship was on Logan Martin. And I had, the first day, me and my partner had 15-something, and then I think the second day we had 15-something, and we come in 7th, and I think 6th was you and your dad, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. I thought I remembered that.
I was actually at that one. That was the year I fished it with Matt Carter.
Really?
And I don't remember what we did. It wasn't much.
Yeah, we had like 15 and 15 or something like that. Maybe high 14, 15, and Taylor and his dad finished right in front of us, 6th and 7th.
I feel like me and you talked, Trey. I feel like we talked because there was somebody there we both knew or something.
I think so. I don't know I think my mom. I don't know. My mom was there. I don't know if it was something to do with my mom knew you, or I don't even know how it went, but I do remember that, and I think that's the reason I remember it.
Who were you fishing those with at 16?
Ricky Campbell. I fished with him from the time I was like 14, about 16.
Okay.
He's a plumber around where I went to school, and I just met him through a friend of mine, and we fished the ABT for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we made the championship that year and did pretty good. But I remember, I don't know why, when you said we were having him on, I was like, I got to bring that up because I swear they finished right in front of us at Logan.
Yeah. That's the only year I ever fished the ABT. So my buddy called and said, man, my partner backed out. Can you fish with me? And I said, well, I can't. You get me near a fish, I'll catch it, but I don't know anything about those other lakes. I'm a Guntersville guy. I don't hardly go anywhere else.
That's right.
If I had time, I would.
That
I really
was a
enjoyed
fun
that.
tournament, though. That championship at Logan Martin, we caught so many fish. We really had a shot to win it. I lost the daggum 6-pounder on a square bill at the boat, and it bent my back treble hook. It just looked like you just grabbed it with pliers and just twisted it up.
Wow.
Right at the boat. But that was probably because I was young and throwing it on the wrong rod and wrong line and wrong reel and probably being horsing it and being stupid.
It just wasn't your day.
No. Well, I mean, it could. I think that was.
That wasn't a bad showing now.
Probably more the Indian in the era right there.
Yeah, right.
Looking back on it now.
Looking back. So, well, Taylor, I really appreciate you coming on, talking for a minute. Kind of what you're talking about is probably going to be next April before it's really the way. But, he threw out a little tidbits there. He used the word milfoil and swim jig and one bait he won't tell us about. And
I hope he don't, if it's what I'm thinking about.
and then probably don't have to worry about me doing it because I'm not going to sight fish. I normally take April off.
That's the only way I know to catch a bedfish is this one bait that you don't have to look at him doing it. So I hope he don't say nothing.
Now that topwater bite that you mentioned, that's going to be on for a while, particularly with the bluegill pulling up, stuff like that.
You catch them on a little topwater for a while.
Yeah, through the
mornings and afternoons,
Yeah,
as long as there ain't floating grass.
I was about to say, if you can get it through the floating grass.
That's right.
And pleasure boat season is starting now too, and that just makes more floating grass. Hey, Tyler, we sure do appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us. And actually giving a little information. Our last guests were kind of tight-lipped. Trey and I chuckled about it. We knew the guys and had talked to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll come on. We'll give you a little info. We're going to be quiet because we're fishing, casting, and catching." But they were pretty tight-lipped.
You wouldn't know if they locked through. They wasn't going to say jack.
No, it was pretty quiet. But we appreciate them coming on too. But I appreciate you kind of telling us what you did. It's pretty cool that you win something of that magnitude on Guntersville with your dad.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So, I'm glad you won it. I'm glad you're here. I guess you're going to be picking on us for a while. So it sounds like he's moved in to take over. You didn't fish the BFL or anything this weekend?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I learned from the last time I won. The hell, I haven't won since I won that Costa Series when I was 18. So
Right.
The last time, I don't know. I've always done this. Just don't ever count the chickens before they hatch.
No, that's right. But you're on house money now. So
I'm sure I'll be humbled plenty enough.
Guntersville will do it to you.
It's about to be my time of the year. Maybe I can take your money since you took mine at Logan Martin.
He didn't take yours. You got some money.
I did, but he took a little bit of mine.
Okay, I got you. All right. Well, Taylor, we're sure to appreciate it, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah, sounds good. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate Taylor coming on and talking with us. As Trey and I were talking about, it sounds like he's going to be around for a while and kind of knows what he's doing. So,
yeah, I'm kind of nervous about that. I feel like he's going to take some of our money for a while, man.
These young guys, I used to be one of those, and the world's changed. Y'all are steps ahead of where we were at that age because of electronics and time. And I mean, just the learning curve. We talked about that before, and there's just access. I mean, we used to have to wait on a Bassmaster magazine to come out. Now you can learn more in an hour's worth of YouTube videos.
I was about to say 30 minutes worth of a YouTube video. You can learn everything you want about whatever.
Yeah, and I think he's maybe a little older than you, a couple years older than you. But
he's been catching them for a long time. He's fished with his dad, the ABT, forever. They've always caught him.
Yeah. So apparently his dad, and then it sounds like he's quite the sight fisherman.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to hook up with him and might help you a little bit on some of your ventures.
You ain't lying.
And so, I mean, you're gonna run into that. You may still run into that on some of that northern stuff.
It was a little bit of a player at Ross Barnett. I just chose to stay away from it. The water was a little bit stained. You couldn't see them in a lot of places, but I know some guys that had found some on bed.
Saw the light spots or something. So the next 2 weeks, starting this next weekend, we've got the ABA Top 150 Solo. First place on that, if it's a full field, I think it's $20,000.
I need to get in that.
No, you need to call them, see if they got open. But it's pretty expensive. It was $800 or $900. I think.
No, Trey don't need to get in that.
Yeah, if it was $150, buddy, I'd be out there.
I was about to say, if it was $200, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, if it was $200, I'd probably fish it, and I hadn't been, and I having to work. You got all your Wildcats going on: Honeycomb, Browns Creek Sunday afternoon tournaments, Roseberry Thursday night, Mud Creek has one on Monday night. The week after is the MLF Pro Circuit. I don't know what their practice days are. Do they get 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, I think they get. Actually, I don't know if they even have an off limits.
Oh, this is the Pro Tour. This is the FLW. This is the FLW.
Okay, so it's the big guys.
It's not the it's not a Toyota.
I think they get three days.
So they'll probably, let's see, their event starts on Thursday. So they may not fish Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday practice or something like that. So I think they might whack them.
Yeah, I got that. I'm kind of real upset that I figured out today that they're coming because I planned on being out there every single day next week, but I try to stay out of those guys' way.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I might go out in the evening or something. But
I might go out, daylight or whatever. But I try to stay out of their way because if an open come here and they were fun fishing, I'd expect them to stay out of my way too. So
yeah, and the other thing is, if you go out there and start catching them and they see you,
yep,
it's the way it works.
Yep,
and it might be one offshore. It probably will be one offshore. Mm-hmm. But do not rule that grass bite out because of the pressure offshore. Because that first wave of offshore fish, they're not everywhere.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think it'll be one offshore.
Maybe a mix.
I think it'll be a little bit of both, but I think there's just so many 2-pounders in the grass here with the restocking stuff they've done and the way they're reproducing. I think somebody will rack up on some 2-pounders on the chatterbait in the grass somewhere at Spook, top water.
Now, this is not the Bass Pro Tour now. This is a 5. This is the Big 5.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, this is
I don't know. It might be one.
It might be one. If the right guy gets the right boat draw at the right place.
I can't keep up with all that. Some of you catch all you can catch. Some you catch 5. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. No, this is the 5. Now, they may zero.
I think they do 3 combined
and then
zero the weights.
I don't like that not one bit. I heard Luke Duncan complaining about talking about that too. He's like, I just don't know about all that.
I ain't gonna lie. If I had a 20-pound lead going in the last day, by God, I better have a 20-pound lead starting the last day.
But now, if somebody was paying you to be there, you'd be fishing it and smiling about it.
Well, and I say that to say this: if I was in 15th place, I'd be dadgum glad they gave me that 20 pounds back because ain't no way you'd win. But
right,
if you're in the top 3, I'm sure you.
It changes the game.
It does.
It almost makes you, of course, they don't know their weights on this one. Like the Bass Pro Tour, what was originally MLF, where they're sitting there with their score tracker update stuff. They don't know their weights, in the FLW like the Bass Pro Tour guys do. If you did, you'd be like, well, man, I've got enough to make the cut. I'm going to lay off my fish. But, here you're like, well, it's Guntersville. Somebody might catch 28 pounds,
But if you catch 28 today and 28 tomorrow, it don't do you no good for the final day.
Yeah, a lot of fish go back where they come from, but not that fast.
Not that fast.
No. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 weeks, we've had, I think, 4 registered bass tags caught. Two of the folks were out of towners that had registered. One guy registered down at one of the Neely places and came up here. The fish that he caught in Spring Creek, and I let it go in Goose Pond in January. And then had another guy catch a prior year's tag, and I forget where it was from and back and forth, but it had gone a long ways too. And then John Maynard, your buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
Your buddy.
My buddy.
John had some fun things to say about you that we're not going to say on the air.
I'm sure he did. I'll call him when we leave the little studio we got going.
Despite what he wanted me to say about you, I'm not. But I believe you really do have a girlfriend. We'll just leave it at that.
That's right. I do. I promise.
So, and then Alan Musso, a local guy, and that was our 4. I'm going to tell a story. This just happened last night. I get a message from, I guess he would be my second cousin. He's in the 8th grade. It's my first cousin's boy. Loves to fish. Fishes for Scottsboro, junior high school, however they do it now. He says, hey, I caught one of your tags. And I'm like, great. Are you registered? Because I know he has been prior years. His dad works out of town. It's been out of town. He travels with his job. He's been gone since February. And he goes, well, I think so. And he messaged me back and forth. And I called him, and his dad was on the phone. And I said, well, you registered? He goes, yeah, I registered him last year. And I said, buddy, that don't count. So my little 14-year-old cousin named Drake Dooley is that guy. And you know what? He caught it. Him and a buddy were wading. They got into some fish wading, caught like 30, and he caught that. It was a prior year's tag, so at least it was only $500. Sure. But he goes, so this thing's worth nothing. I said, pretty much, But and of course, then I told his dad what he needed to do to register. He goes, man, I've been out of town. I didn't even think about it. And I said, yeah, well, it's Drake, you learned a lesson. You should have told your dad to sign you up.
That stinks right there.
That does. Nothing would have tickled me more than a 14-year-old kid fishing from the bank.
Catching one up.
Absolutely.
Which
he did catch one. He just didn't get any money for it.
Yeah,
that's
right.
He didn't
get to claim his tokens.
That's right. So, and he's mad at a fish, and I think his daddy signed him up online last night, and I hope he catches another one.
That's
right. Don't be that guy.
That's right.
So, Trey's time's coming. He's called it. He said in May.
Yep. So, May and June's going to be my
boat, and the truck's still out there. You think the boat went back to the boat hole?
I mean, I got a dot on my graph called the boat hole, so we're going to find out. There'll be lots of bass boat flipped on a swim bait off that hole, so we're going to find out.
Oh, yeah. So, that's your big tournaments. The Foodland's 3 weeks away. There was still some, you have to register for that ahead of time. They cut it off at $200, I believe. It's only $100. I don't ever fish it because it's the first weekend the kids are out of school and it turns into a zoo. And I hadn't decided on that one. Last post I saw they still had 70 or 80 spots left, I think.
That's always one I always look forward to fishing, but they decided that it would be a good idea to have the ABT at Wheeler and that the same day.
Is it the same day?
Yeah,
it is.
So it's going to cut a lot of guys.
Hey, that ABT on Wheeler's going to be fun. I think.
Wheeler's never been. I say that I've always somehow ended up catching some there, but I mean, you're gonna have your Jeremy Briscoe and Lance Whitaker. They're gonna probably catch 28 pounds again and beat everybody, but
it's gonna have a lot of fish.
I'm more of the 15 to 17 pound guy on Wheeler. I just can't get over that mark, but
yeah. Is that your next one? Is ABT there? And you're not traveling again for a while, are you?
July. I think I'll leave July the 4th, headed to New York. So it's perfect timing traveling.
Yeah, that'll be
driving
fun.
16 hours. It'll probably end up being 26 hours with traffic.
Somewhere. Probably got to drive through Atlanta to get to New York, which makes no sense, but you got to drive through Atlanta to get anywhere.
Anywhere you go, I got to go through Atlanta to get home from Guntersville to Cleveland. It feels like every time I put it in my GPS, it says to go through Atlanta.
And sit in traffic for 3 hours.
Sit in traffic for 3 hours.
Well, that's pretty much a wrap. Any tournament information you need, the bassandbiggg.com website should be up to date with most everything. There's a couple of new Wildcat things looming. A club that a group's going to start on Tuesday. There's one guy talking about doing a Saturday afternoon deal, just because that's after some of the other crowds. He hit me up about that way. He hadn't told me if he's decided he's going to do it or not.
I'd be there on those.
It sounded like a decent deal. He didn't have to get up so early. And, by 2:00, most people are going to be gone anyway.
Yep.
So, anyway, that information should be available on the website when I have it. Until next time, if you enjoyed, give us a like, share, tell your friends. See you in a couple weeks.